Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. Guys, you know this is one of my favorite space right here because we're getting an opportunity to honor the guests because they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive, their time. Every one of us is given 24 hours. What we do with our time will tell me a lot about you. If you learn how to respect time, she will reward you, man. I'm telling you guys. When I was much younger, I thought I was going to live forever. As I get older, I realize that, wait a minute, I need to learn how to value her. And once I began to do that, my life began to change. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It created the individual that is before us, and that individual is Jaymes. And we want to thank him for coming and sharing his wisdom, knowledge, and insights so that you and I can become better human spirits while we're here on this planet Earth. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, man.
My absolute pleasure. I'm digging your ethos already. It really speaks to me.
Awesome, man. As I mentioned to you, I've always asked everyone this question: how do they serve mankind? And one of the reasons why I do that is also to alert the listeners that are listening, those that are listening to us, that the journey and life on this planet is not all about the self. It's also reaching to others and helping others to see the greatness of who they are. How do you serve mankind currently?
I'd say the big one is through my music. That is where I think I can make the biggest impact. And spreading messages of like positivity, love, self-determination, self-expression, encouraging people to be what they truly are and not what they feel forced to be by the people, conditions, and circumstances around them.
That is awesome. One of the things that I've always tell people about music or sound therapy, that's what music is, basically sound therapy. And you have your words, which can ignite the imagination, if you will. And once the imagination is ignited, it is a great combination with that sound therapy to produce an outcome. Some people use sound therapy at the beach. You have the water, running water, rain, all of these type sound, nature sounds. But music also is one of the most powerful out there. And I look at it, Jaymes, as sound therapy with a mantra, if you will, the words that you are singing and so forth. And coupled with those two things, it becomes a powerful force to change individual life. So yeah, man, I love the fact that you're a musician. I'm also a musician. I play the bass, and I understand the power of music. So how long have you been doing that, the music aspect of it? And we're going to go into a lot more stuff.
I mean, I've always had the sort of craving for performance, like ever since I was a little kid. I probably started like singing in some capacity around the same time I started talking, and just like never stopped. It took a while before like I got my voice to a place that other people liked, but I've always enjoyed the process. And since I was pretty young, I was also writing poetry. And when I realized how important like words to me in terms of expression and spreading a message, what I had to say, what was in me, I realized I could, a lot of my friends were getting into music really seriously and starting bands. And I thought, this is the place where my words seem to go. And then I got on stage for the first time and realized, oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. There's like nothing else that gives me this exact sense of joy and ebullience and just like connection. I think, it's like, I'm someone who I'm pretty good at living in the moment, but I also live in too many moments. I'm always like living at like several different points in times. Being on stage, performing, doing my music with my band, that is like the one time I feel closest to just living in the present and nowhere else.
Yeah. I love that time of live performance and playing there, because I believe that the world, if you will, is engaged in voyeurism to some degree, because you're on stage, because I know as a musician, I'm totally in ecstasy with my music as I'm playing and being a part of that. And then you have these individual participating, if you will, in some form of voyeurism because they're looking into my intimacy with my music. That's how I always thought about my music when I played it, so that I saw the audience as participating in a form of voyeurism while I was performing my music, because it was something I love and I still love to do. And that exchange gives me an even deeper high as we move through music, as you know what I'm saying?
I do, yeah. And speaking of the voyeurism thing, I think it is good in a lot of cases for the audience to have the experience of living vicariously through what they see you do.
Yeah.
Can be like, freeing in the moment. And at least for some people, it'll stick with them and encourage them to bring some of that freedom into their own lives,
Yeah.
and thus live
There
more
was a
freedom.
Yeah, I love that, man. I remember playing in a gig one day, and we had a small gig that we were called to play, and everyone was like so excited because we played in every venue that we can, big, large, and stuff like that. And when we got on stage and we began to play our music, this elderly gentleman, Jaymes, is in a corner, and we are playing this music, and you can see him just beginning to rise and move with every single note that we hit. And I focused my attention on, and for me, I was playing for him because the joy of watching this man just take off and began to lose himself because he was in this dance, this trance dance, as this elderly gentleman who knew what his day was like or his week or whatever, his life at the time. But I know in that moment, as you said, it allows you to be in the moment present. I saw some ecstasy on this man's face that alleviated whatever was in his mind that was burdening him and gave him the opportunity to be free for that amount of time that we were on the stage. It's a powerful aphrodisiac, if you will, when you see those type things from the audience. One of the things that we do here, Jaymes, is go back into the family life, because I think that's the genesis of where we are created as individuals. We have mom and dad, these two individuals, whatever trauma they are in, they are going to deposit data into you, information, and that information helps you and I to start to make decisions, beliefs, and all those things. What was your family unit like?
Honestly, I was incredibly fortunate. I feel as though a lot of the bad stuff in my life is a kind of my own doing, but a lot of the good stuff, like a lot of my good qualities were really fostered and encouraged and helped along by my parents. They were actually like just
Yeah,
really, I mean, no family's perfect, but they were, like from the start, at least, like, I mean, at the very least, I can say there was never any doubt of love, like it was a
yeah,
very loving household, my two parents and my brother. And it was a while before I realized, like, not everyone gets that. Like, not everyone is just like raised in a family where like just love is a given and then something you kind of
yeah,
just accept as like oxygen, right? It's just always going to be there.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, when I realized that, I realized like really how incredibly lucky I was to have that.
That is
Yeah.
awesome, man. Not, as you stated, not many families are afforded the opportunity to experience that, and many individuals and never got a chance to because mom and dad didn't live long enough or whatever. But when you get it, it is very intoxicating and it's very stabilizing in many ways. How was your relationship to others, Jaymes, outside of your family? How did Jaymes approach relationship building, if you will, at a young age as a young man outside of the family?
So because of my neurodivergence, it was sometimes kind of tricky. I guess more for other people. Like I've always been like pretty open. Just like I'll like approach people or like respond to them just with like complete like honesty and all and energy. And not everyone is like quite prepared for that. There were a lot of, I suppose, conventions of interpersonal dynamics that were very foreign to me, but intuitive to everyone else. That like people expect you to kind of behave a certain way, and like maybe like play certain games, and I just was not aware of that stuff. So I just kind of um, approached with my sort of like own kind of weirdness, and some people responded that well, like, oh, this is weird but cool, let's go. Or some people were just like almost as weird as I was. And so yeah, those two types of people were the kinds that it was very easy to form friendships with. And the other people I had to like learn better how to respond to them and kind of I was never able to like fully like duplicate what they were doing, but I could at least
Yeah.
meet them in the middle. And that was a very important and hard lesson for me to learn, how I need to keep people in the middle more.
That
It's
is
something
a
yeah. When I learned it, I strove to keep it in mind.
it is lesson that many of us still have to learn, Jim, how to meet in the middle. I think we have to understand there is an art, if you will, of compromise, a bad word amongst many people. There's this art of, because everyone has to be, you have to give everyone the space to be an individual. I put it this way, I tell people, this is how I look at life, and maybe because I'm an artist in some degree, my mind is that each one of us come here on this planet with an empty canvas, if you will. And I may use my colors a little different than yours. But that doesn't mean that I should look at your artwork and begin to criticize you. If you're using different colors, red or green, differently based on your life and your way of thinking, I should look at that and admire that you're able to use it that way. I can't use it that way, but I use it this way. And so, I believe we should be interacting with each other, going, wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. And when we approach life in that fashion, James, I believe we have an opportunity to learn so much instead of having this antagonistic relationship with each other and criticizing one another's usage of the paint on the canvas of life, if you will. So when you're heading into going towards high school and college in your area, how did you approach heading into that? Because again, that's part of the programming. We got to go, as the programmers say, we have to do these steps. Did you align with the program and the programmers, or did you veer off and did your own and began to make your own path? What was your approach as you're moving out from on the mom and dad, as they say?
Yeah, the middle school and like early high school was like really tough, because that was like when the veering off became very clear to everyone around me in a way it wasn't always so clear before, and that did result in a lot of antagonism between me and the establishment around me. At that point, I was very unwilling to compromise, and that was a huge problem. And I remember my dad had this kind of mantra he'd tell me like, James, you need to row out to meet the boat, which was his way of saying meet in the middle. And it took a long time for me to realize what he meant by that and how important it was. Now it's stuck in my mind, like, row out to meet the boat. But yeah, for a long time, I was so resistant to do that. But yeah, and so that resulted in a lot of, it became mutual antagonism where, like, because the people around me didn't like how I did things, I thought it meant they hated me, so I should hate them. And yeah, another lesson I had to learn, and kind of had to teach myself, was that hate is, in so many cases, a complete waste of energy. Definitely in those
Yeah.
cases. And there are so many more effective ways to move through life, so many other paths that will lead you and everyone around you to a better outcome in so many cases. But yeah, when you're like, I guess like 13, 14, and your hormones are crazy and everything's exploding, yeah, at least for me, that was not the easiest lesson to learn.
Yeah, and as you're moving along in life, James, because you are, as you're expressing, you are a little different than the others around you. How did that begin to affect you as an individual? Because you're looking into the others, if you will, and most of them are not, their synapses is not as connecting and making decisions the way you would in your mind. But you're looking at all of these, and these, meaning those outside of you, are judging, and you talk about that relationship where you are both coming at each other. How did it affect you, though? How did it make you feel um, as you were engaging in this process?
It kind of made me feel disconnected in a big new way I was not prepared for. All the stuff I was like kind of taught to expect from that period of life, I just didn't materialize, and like all these kind of like nightmares were like manifesting around me, and that kind of like sent me like deeper into a spiral, and I did not know what to do. I thought there's like a brief period where I kind of like tried to make myself into something that was more easily understandable to the people around me, not necessarily more desirable, but at least something simple enough for them to understand and interact with in a more compatible way. And that didn't work either. That was, I guess, I'm autistic, and there's a thing a lot of autistics go through called masking, and I was never good at that. I never kind of had that impulse. But yeah, in that brief period, I think that was my kind of attempt at masking, and I failed spectacularly.
And in failing spectacularly, what did you do in that space? Did you say, okay, I need to get some help to get me out? What was your decision process as far as after you fail, you recognize that you failed? What did you do to begin to make yourself whole, if you will?
So I realized it wasn't helping anyone else, and it was
Yeah.
just making my life worse and preventing me from living as I should. And when I
Yeah.
realized that, I just went back to embracing, like, my core self, the kind of, person that I'd always been, and doing my best to work on that and refine that and make that like the best version of myself, not some like mid version of someone else, right? And so once I did that, which honestly I had some time for introspection, so it was actually a fairly efficient process, at least to get the ball rolling. And once I did that, not only did I feel better, and I was able to live better, like from the start, it also kind of made it easier to get along with other people somehow. Just like I broke the barriers I put up down, and also from there broke down more barriers I wasn't even quite aware I had before that, and
Yeah.
that really made it easier for me to get along with the people around me, at least on some level, be understood. And it was just like, and that was when I kind of really dialed into the idea of just complete openness, but also like openness in a way that others could relate to and at least like get along with,
Yeah.
kind of not only putting your own barriers down, but finding ways to approach other people's barriers in the way they want it.
And how did you get there? Did you seek help, or how did you begin to move through all of that, Jaymes? Where did that motivation came from? I know the fact that you had tried to please everyone, as you stated, but when you were there, what decision did you make and said to yourself, "Hey, now this I have to work on me to move through this and not worry about anyone else." And what did you bring in there? Did you bring in help with someone? How did you get it reading? How did you approach that?
So throughout my life, basically since kindergarten through like high school, my parents tried to send me to a lot of different therapists and psychologists and stuff because they thought there had to be like some external fix for things, and none of it really stuck. And then there was this one summer in high school where I had a heart problem that put me in hospital for 6 weeks at the end of summer, which annoyed me to no end. I was on like bed rest for at least like 2 of those weeks. It really sucked. But it meant that I couldn't go back to my school because their semester started while I was still in hospital, and
Mhm.
the administration there already had some problems with me, so they used the fact that I was in hospital at the beginning of their term as an excuse to keep me out. So I had that entire semester to myself, and I wasn't in school during the day, so I had a lot of time for introspection, self-reflection, all that. And that's when I was already kind of trying to figure out what the next step on my life path was. And I had so much time to think about it and myself and how to make myself better. And that was probably the biggest singular period of development I'd had to that point, just because I had the time to do it finally. And I recognize a lot of people never have that kind of break, that they need to really work on themselves. So yeah,
Yeah.
that did a lot. And
And
then I
as you
came out of that,
began
I was like, yeah.
And as you did that, what did you started to notice about you, Jaymes, as you began to do the infrastructure, looking in deeper inside? What did you begin to notice, and how did you begin to escort yourself once you noticed it and it came to your awareness that, hey, this is a part of me, and I need to, create a different mindset? How did you do it? Did you bring it through meditation? What was it? What tools did you started to use to help you to navigate from one space to the other when you began to see some of those things in you?
Yeah, as I said, I'd always had like some, I guess, fairly coherent idea of myself. And I guess a lot of the problem was just how to manifest that consistently and healthily in the world. And so
Yeah.
a lot of that time was spent like, okay, how do I take what's in me and what's best about myself and live in a way that brings that up to its full potential?
Yeah. And As you're moving through, because you mentioned you were pretty much singing and writing at a young age, how was your music walking with you at this period of time? What was your expression like in the arena of music and writing? What were you doing, if you will, at that time as you're going through? You're in a hospital, you're looking inside of you, all of these things. How did your music come in and work with you?
That's also when I started to take the music very seriously, and the poetry too, because apart from music, I still do write, like, poetry for the page. And that's when I really started to like decide that those two things were my natural vocations. And so I
Yeah.
started to take that stuff very seriously too. And I obviously had a lot of time to write, started like really figuring out where music was going to take me to. And I guess in that previous high school period, I sometimes been less honest than I should have been in the way I wrote. And after that, I got right back to full openness and authenticity with what I was writing.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons why I asked that, James, because I know that we have, as humans, we need tools to assist us to move through um, our pain, our mindsets, and all of these different things. And yours, that's why I asked that question, because I know the importance and the power of music and writing, especially when you're going through some painful time. The fact that you're able to allow yourself to write those words. And as you said, there is a degree of honesty that is required when you are dealing with yourself. And the time by yourself will force you to come back to honesty, because once you begin to be honest with yourself, you'll be able to be honest with anyone and everyone else. So here you are, man, two of the most powerful forces that you have partnered with, that is of music and writing, as you're moving through your life, and you recognize the importance of both of them in your life. As you began to study more on the art of writing and music and so forth, and then you said that when you began to become honest, what did you see in your relationship and with yourself, number one, James, and the other, relationship with others, as you're now embarking on this new path of being more honest with yourself?
So for myself, I felt happy with myself for the first time in years since the start of that whole nightmare era. Instantly, the relationships I had with the people around me, closest to me, the people who know me the longest and see me from, childhood where things were much easier through that period of turmoil. They suffered the worst of it. That really put a strain on a lot of my relationships with my parents and my close friends and all of that. And so they'd seen that progression. And then they saw me come out of it, and instantly things started to heal. I think my friendships instantly like improved, things as it should be, and even better. I think the relationship with my mother took the longest, but even then we did it pretty efficiently, pretty smoothly. You know,
No.
she
Yeah,
still
yeah.
hasn't forgotten, that high school period, but she definitely forgave a while ago, and we've had a very good relationship ever since.
That is awesome, man. To have an opportunity to mend those relationships, those vital relationships, if you can. I always encourage people to take advantage of it, because we're not here on this particular plane for a long time. 50, 60 years, 80 years in some cases. It's not a long time. So here you are, James. You got a chance to, heal some uh, relationships. Most of all, your relationship with yourself and your family and so forth. When you began to experience that, how did all of the healing affect your music? What did you begin to do in the production, the writing of your music, as you're healing self, number one, and with others? How did that change you, your writing and music play?
Um, I suppose it gave me the chance to focus on it more. But I will say one of my strengths is that regardless of what I'm going through, I can take any emotion, positive or negative, and channel it into art. And I do think art's a very good outlet for healthy processing of emotion of any kind. So even when I'm in the worst like parts of my life, going through the worst moods or whatever, I can still uh like turn that into good art. So that was never so much of a problem. But yeah, having a clarity of self definitely was conducive to having a clarity of mission and purpose when it came to making the music. So it did make it, I guess, easier focus on the sort of practical side of making the music, refining it into something good.
Yeah.
So that did help there, and even just like that, having band practice and organizing all the stuff around music got easier, I would say.
Yeah, I tell people once you find your assignment, because I tell people that we didn't come here, Jaymes, to get a job. A job, all it does basically is provide for you, but most people, their jobs don't give them the joy that is necessary to fuel you. But when you find your assignment, it fuels you. You can work, you can do that 24 hours a day, and people are going to look at you and say, "Aren't you tired?" And not realizing that it gives you energy because it's not their assignment. If they try to do what you're doing, they're going to burn out and fall all over the place. But your assignment gives you this joy, and it gives you the fuel to go beyond what's normal, if you want to say that, in the span of anything. So I tell people, find your assignment. It'll change your life. So here you are, you have your band, you guys are doing your thing. As you are now in your life, in your space where you're at right here, Jaymes, what are you looking to do now that you are in your assignment? What is it on your heart that you want to reach out and help people to move through some of those dark places that you have been as an individual? What is it on your heart to do that?
Yeah, well, as I said, like so much of my problem was knowing. Well, I guess I knew how, but I didn't know that I should just like live so honestly and authentically. There was like so much wasted time in hiding myself. And in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that long. It was probably like a couple of years or something. But it was still too much, Like any bit of wasted time is time you're not gonna get back. And I love the person I am now, and I just like sometimes I wish if I could just like go back in time and just know that I could be that person earlier and how
Yeah.
valuable that would be to me and even people around me. It would have things could have been even better, right? And if I
Yeah.
can kind of impart that lesson to others and help them avoid the mistakes I made through the way I represent myself in the world and through my music, I think that would be I would feel good about that impact.
Yeah, it is always good, man, to be honest to yourself, regardless of what people's opinion is about you, because that's their opinion of you. They can have all kinds of opinion, and that's what people do. They love to do stuff like that because they're miserable within themselves, and so you don't allow someone's opinion of you to cause you to challenge yourself. Just begin, I believe some people come in to point places and weaknesses that you have, and you're able to say, investigate that comment that they give to you. If it resonates, then you take it and you begin to work on making yourself a better person. But most people, when they're commenting on something, they're criticizing and not allowing you the space to experience yourself. So here, I want you to talk to someone, Jaymes, someone that take a look into the camera and say, remember when you were that young individual and you have an opportunity as an older you to talk to that younger you. What would you say to that individual? As you said, you wish that you can go back in time. What would that conversation be with that young you?
Recognize what's in you that you love, what's good, what is most emblematic of the highest form of the true you. Focus on that. Uh, Identify it and like hold on to it. Never let it go, regardless of like the storm of craziness that's going around you or within you. Just focus on that stuff and refine it, purify it, bring it to its highest degree of being, and let that like guide you forward.
That is awesome advice. Anyone and everyone that has been listening to our conversation with Jaymes, man, I welcome you guys. We're going to provide all of his links so you can get to him, listen to his music, his writing, his poetry, all of those things. Because as I remember as a young man, how important music is to me. And as I said to you guys, music and words, they are therapy. People have big businesses about sound therapy, and they have bowls and they have all these things. Nature has beautiful sound. Music itself is therapy. It changes one's state instantaneously. You can hear a song and it'll pull you out from a dark place. You can hear words and it will change and ignite your imagination to begin to move through your pain. And so we're going to provide everything that you can have access to Jaymes, so that you can follow him and his group and all of the things that they're doing. Jaymes, I want to thank you, man, for coming to Threads of Enlightenment and sharing your journey and giving us an opportunity to see how you are and how you made it through, man. It's an honor to have you here at Threads of Enlightenment, truly.
It's an honor to be here, seriously. This has been a very enlightening and like pleasurable discussion. It's been a good time.
Excellent, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.